Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Today I will be telling you about Hazrat Moosa alayhi salam and his life. And let's start. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. About 3,000 years ago, Egypt was ruled by a king called Fir'aun, or a pharaoh. One day, a court soothsayer told Fir'aun that year a boy would be born among the tribe of the Bani Israel who would destroy him and his kingdom. Enraged, Fir'aun ordered all the newborn boys of the tribe to be killed. The Bani Israel, already enslaved by Fir'aun, suffered the torment of seeing their newborn sons killed while only their daughters were spared. During these horrible times, a pious woman called Yukabid of the Bani Israel gave birth to a beautiful boy who was named Moosa. She was told by Allah that this was a very special child who would one day become a great prophet. Allah inspired her to put him in a box, which she was to cast into the river Nile. With the promise that her baby would be safe, she obeyed Allah's order, and as the waves carried the box away, his sister kept a watch on it until it stopped at a bank near the royal palace. There it was picked up by a member of Fir'aun's household and brought to the queen. The queen was a loving, kind-hearted woman. Dear brothers and sisters, do you know who that pious lady was? She was Hazrat Asya alayhi salam. When she saw the baby, her heart was touched and she exclaimed, "What a lovely child! Whosoever sees him cannot but love him." Despite the king's objection, Hazrat Asya decided to keep the baby in the palace and raise him as her own child. The Prophet Moosa alayhi salam, brought up with loving care by the queen, received the best education. But because Moosa alayhi salam accidentally killed someone, Fir'aun intended to slay him. Therefore, Moosa alayhi salam quietly left the city and journeyed to Madian, where he met the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam and married his daughter after spending some years in the beautiful valley of Madian. Moosa alayhi salam returned with his family to Egypt. They traveled slowly towards the Mount Sinai, passing through awesome landscapes, deserts and rocks. One cold winter evening, as it grew darker and a cold breeze began to blow, they seemed to have lost their way. Moosa alayhi salam looked around and noticed a fire quite far away on the other side of a mountain. He said, "Wait here. Look, I can see a fire in the distance. Perhaps I can find out where we are, or at least get a burning brand to warm ourselves with." As Moosa alayhi salam reached the source of the light, Allah spoke to him and gave him wisdom and miracles. Allah told him that He had chosen him as His messenger and commanded him to go with these signs and give his message to Fir'aun, who had made himself the tyrant in the land. Inspired by Allah and armed with his clear signs, Moosa alayhi salam reached the court of Fir'aun along with his brother Harun alayhi salam. But Fir'aun rejected them outright. To convince him, Moosa alayhi salam threw down his staff and it turned into a huge snake. Then he drew out his hand from his armpit and it was shining brightly. But Fir'aun rejected these miracles, calling them magic. Fir'aun called his best magicians to outdo the Prophet Moosa alayhi salam. The magicians threw down their magic ropes and sticks. These now looked like live snakes and serpents withering on the ground. Moosa alayhi salam was horrified as the snakes seemed to coil and uncoil around him. As Moosa alayhi salam threw down his staff, all of a sudden it became a huge snake. So my dear brothers and sisters, what was more amazing was that it began to eat up all the other snakes one after another. It had eaten them until it had eaten them all up. Everyone was wonderstruck. The magicians fell on the ground in adoration, exclaiming, "We believe in the Lord of Moosa and Harun." But Fir'aun raged violently, growing more and more stubborn, punished the magicians. He soon redoubled the tournament of the Bani Israel tribe. Faced with Fir'aun's worst cruelty. Prophet Musa ﷺ was finally commanded by Allah to leave Egypt along with the entire tribe of the Bani Israel. Therefore, one night, fearing Fir'aun's wrath, Musa ﷺ and his followers secretly departed. When Fir'aun was informed about this, he set out with his huge army, with its many chariots, horsemen, and soldiers, to punish the Bani Israel. Musa ﷺ and his followers marching ahead were about to reach the sea when some of them spotted a great cloud of dust to their rear. This struck a great terror into the entire caravan as they realized Fir'aun's huge army was pursuing them. As Fir'aun's troop drew nearer to hemming them in, Allah told Musa ﷺ to strike the sea with his staff. No sooner had Musa ﷺ done so that a great miracle took place. The waves of the sea began to split in two halves. A path across the sea had opened up, and Musa ﷺ and his people thanked Allah as they safely crossed over. Musa ﷺ and his followers were barely across when Fir'aun and his army arrived at the banks of the sea. And moved by Allah's miracle, Fir'aun decided to go on pursuing Musa ﷺ. But when Fir'aun and his army were halfway across the waves, standing obediently on the other side, like huge walls turned back into the water and fell on them. Fir'aun and his army were instantly crushed and drowned. Once across, Musa ﷺ and his followers landed safely into Sinai Peninsula. The Prophet Musa ﷺ called on to his people and told them to remember Allah's goodness in saving them from Fir'aun and to be thankful to him for his favor. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, that was the story of Hazrat Musa ﷺ. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Wassalamu alaikum.